Hello, good afternoon, good afternoon. So, as you guys heard, compliance. Who in here hears compliance and lawyers and gets excited? No one? I don't blame you. Okay, so going into the legal compliance. So I am here to make this an interactive session. I think every time we hear about navigating compliance, how can we do our jobs with, the exciting things that get thrown at us with limitations, different industries. We all face different things depending on what we do with social media. So I'm Izabela Bos. I am the social media manager at the University of Miami Health System, also the Miller School of Medicine. We are a mighty team of two, running over 30 channels altogether. So if you guys are small but mighty teams, we do understand that side of it. Some of you guys might know as the home ground of Alex Earl for my TikTokers that follow her. Some of you guys might be laughing. Okay, another one is it's all about the you. So I have been doing social media, digital media management for over 7 years now, from brand storytelling, analytics, strategy, engagement and growth for social media for different brands, from healthcare, retail, logistics, higher ed education. So when we go into, the compliance side of it, I always like to start off this slide with any presentation I do or anytime I speak. So I want to challenge everyone to pull out your phones. I want everyone to pull out your phones. I know we all have one of these. And I want you to Google yourself, whether it's yourself, your company, whether it's maybe a client you guys just took on, right? If you're a smaller agency that you're working with clients, I want you to see what pops up on that first page of Google. Right now, I do not want you to fall into the rabbit hole of searching. There might be some good things, some bad things, but it's okay because this is why we're gonna go through this exercise. I always like to go through the difference of knowing you versus choosing you. I like to bring this up because it's a very important aspect to think about yourself, your personal branding, a client, maybe a brand that you manage, with a business. Knowing you. So knowing you is what a consumer is reading on that Google page, on the first page of Google from a search engine optimization perspective. Now, choosing you is, are they relating to your content? Are they able to connect with your brand? Are they trusting you with whatever you are posting from a strategic perspective, and are they feeling those emotions? Now, this is where that difference comes in, and this is why I'm here to teach you how to get to that choosing you. And so over this session, I'm going over a few items with content strategy, the best way to go from a compliance perspective if you have any limitations. I know I've spoken to some of you guys where you guys are in different industries that have their own limitations, maybe protected information they have to be careful with when it comes down to posting. And then obviously how to create a humanized brand to be able to get that consumer to choose you. So you want a consumer to turn into a client. You want them to turn maybe into a patient, a future student, or even a customer for your products that you are selling. So with that being said, there is the importance part of compliance partnerships. If you are not collaborating already, collaborate with your legal teams. Who in here has a legal team or someone that maybe you guys can talk to when it comes down from a legal perspective? Great. I know many of you might not, and I think this is where it opens the avenue to research that. You want to make sure that you are collaborating with legal teams. Reason being, for example, when it comes down to a compliance side of it, so with the healthcare system, we actually have to run by HIPAA and patient information compliance areas. If, for example, you are in construction, there are OSHA, there's safety aspects. If you are in logistics, who knows DOT in here when it comes down to the Department of Transportation. Lots of compliance and logistics limitations. I think another thing that we always do not think of limitations is who in here has a leader that texts them. For example, an idea, hey, I just saw this on Facebook, why aren't we doing this? Any hands? There we go. We are the lucky few. So when it comes down to those expectations, you want to make sure that you are knowing your guidelines. So this is where it goes into knowing your guidelines. Research your industry, research your clients, research what you are selling. What are the back-end guides? Do you have to protect patient information? Are you allowed to post a student without their consent on social media? Are you allowed to repost a patient's, posting that they tagged you on? I think a perfect example we always like to say, at least with the healthcare system, is we cannot even like a post that mentions that we saved their life. Who in here thinks that's kind of sad? I think that's very sad, right? And that's where those legal teams do come in. I think when you are speaking to your legal teams, your partnerships, you want to establish a very close connection with these teams to understand the do's and don'ts when it comes down to engagement, creating content strategies, knowing what you can and cannot do. With that being said, with the liking of posts, we actually created a whole process of how we can do that with getting their consent through DMs. So there's always ways to do that collaboration effort. Now, when it comes down to another side of collaboration, those of you that might not have a legal team, maybe you guys are trying to see if this content is really going to resonate with your consumers, you want to maybe create a committee. And when I say committee, it doesn't have to be a whole robust committee of 20 people, 50 people. It can even be just a few customers leaving their review or giving feedback on something you guys are creating. We always look at the analytics of social media to understand, okay, is this truly working? Is this not working? But are we really looking at who is coming in as customers and how we can benefit that journey for the consumer, the journey for the client, the journey of them referring maybe their friends to go buy your product. So that is very important. Now, another thing that I like to bring up is consent forms. So when it comes down to consents, we have to always have some type of consent when it comes down to a legal perspective, believe it or not. I think when it comes down to consent forms, let's say you are in the healthcare industry, we cannot post anything without getting a consent online. If you are in education, a lot of the times students can't be posted without their consent as well. Many of the times we don't realize it as social media managers or directors or teams that these are consents that are needed because ideally they do happen in the front end of the house, but what if they don't? What if you guys do get that lawsuit? Lawsuits right now when it comes down to social media postings, engagements, can be anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000 for one like, which is a crazy amount. Anyone else agree that's a little crazy? There's a lot going on. Okay, so when it comes down to, not only this collaboration, these guidelines, these consents, the accuracy of your information. I think a lot of things that we've been hearing today is AI, things that, are virtual reality, maybe using stock images. Has anyone in here used a stock image for social media? I think we're all a little guilty of that, right? Okay, so stock imagery. Did you know that stock imagery has a deadline of when you can use it till, even though if you have a whole subscription, let's say with Getty Images, Canva? Okay, some people are nodding, some people are saying, oh no, I didn't know that. They do. And so when it comes down to creating this social media strategy, I believe that there's a lot that we have to think about from a compliance perspective, but I don't want you guys to get discouraged to get creative. So this is where I come into play when it comes down to the legal side of it, but also creating that social media strategy. So you want to be in the between of balancing compliance and innovation. So you want to create with the compliance side of the house. So creative but compliant. So the first area that I would want you guys to focus on is the commitment to excellence. So what is an excellent piece of content? What is that quality content over quantity? You do not want to be posting constant images or, stories that do not resonate or drive that, experience of a consumer before they choose you. You want to make sure that everything that you're posting has some meaning and some type of emotion when it comes down to it. Make sure that you have some educational initiatives. We have seen that social media has become the one source of truth. Who in here has been through a frenzy, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, that you're scrolling on your reels and you keep getting the same For You pages? Maybe you researched, you're a new mother, you're researching, hey, what is this reflux that keeps happening? Or maybe you guys are seeing, sunburns. What is this, sunburn that I'm having on my skin? And then you go into a frenzy that it's 10,000 things. Social media has become the one source of truth. And the way that I see it, even during COVID, TikTok has completely changed the game when it comes down to it. People go on social media to find the right brand first off, but also find the needs or the answers of what they're looking for. So you want to make sure that your educational pieces are accurate. You want to make sure that they're original, that they're humanized. So when it comes down to this educational initiative piece, you can do anything from a short video to even a longer form video. I always like to put out this fact. So who in here knows the attention span of a goldfish? Close, close, close. It's actually 9 seconds. So a goldfish's attention span is 9 seconds. Now, who in here can tell me the attention span of us as humans? You know, that'd be a little scary if it was 3. Anyone else? It is 8.25 seconds. So believe it or not, a goldfish has a better attention span than us sitting in this room. That's a little embarrassing, right? Okay, so with that being said, the initiative is not to have long-form content. I think a lot of social media teams get a little worried about creating content videos. Maybe you don't know how to do a rate video. Maybe you don't know what the educational piece will look like. But believe it or not, you can even do an 8-second video and make it go viral, where it's hitting 40,000 accounts reached, where you are pushing the brand voice to a higher and bigger audience to know your brand, and then them having to choose you. I always say when it comes down to engagement, you want to look into not likes, not comments, not being tagged on things on your story. A really good way of doing it is through saves and the way that your content is being shared. Even though I think a lot of leaders don't see this engagement aspect as a big point of engagement, that push to other consumers and other accounts is really what drives that word of mouth on social media. So please keep that in mind when you're going through, that strategy perspective with your team. Now, communication strategies. Although social media is, I would say a lot of our leaders think we just post to post, I think a social media team has many aspects, and I'm sure you guys will giggle a little bit on this one. We're known as the graphic designers, maybe the videographers, the strategists, the analysts, the crisis managers. We are known for the production team, the activations team, events management team. Any other ones you guys think I'm missing? I'm sure there's a whole list to them. I see you guys laughing. It continues to grow as we keep going into this new digital world. Now, when it comes down to communications, you want to be transparent. You want to make sure that you are that one source of truth for people to trust you. So think of it like this. You have this brand persona. Your brand should have its own persona. Just like I have a persona. My name's Izabela Bos. I am here talking to you guys. I know we're about to get into a break, so I promise you I'm trying not to bore you with all this legal aspects. Now, we also have personas around the room. Maybe it's a persona that I am from this accounting firm. Maybe I'm from this healthcare industry. Every brand has a persona just like we have our personal profile pages. So when you are building your brand persona, think of how a consumer sees you. Are you innovative? Are you pushing out research topics that might be too boring for them? Are they connecting with that where it's a daily life of fitness, experience? Maybe it's nutrition. Maybe you're trying to sell, flowers that aren't really relating to the customers you're pushing out now. You want to make sure that that is their transparent aspect of it. You want to be informative. So give something for them to take back. So always be informative, whether there's a CTA to learn more, whether it's, giving them a fun fact, a tip that they might have never known. You want to make sure that they understand that you are someone that they can trust. And when I say someone, that even means that brand is a person that they can trust, because that is how this digital age is starting to work. Everything is going through the social, and unfortunately, it's hitting that AI aspect of it too. Now, when it comes down to the last thing, we want to make sure that it's engaging. Who in here is willing to sit through a 5-minute video on social media that is just talking about, I don't know, the chandelier that we're seeing here above? Would you watch it if it was a minute? I wouldn't watch it if it was a minute. Okay, so make sure that you are doing something engaging, even if it's a few clips that is a maximum of 5-second video. Shorter videos are the new form of way for social media strategies when it comes down to these 3 aspects. And lastly, make sure it's a humanized brand. I think we always lose track. Okay, this is our brand, this is our logo, this is our mission statement, this is what our leaders want us to do. But you are all the subject matter experts when it comes down to social media, when it comes down to the brand vision, the visual that consumers are seeing. You guys are the ones that are driving that ROI, and you take that as your power. Because I think as social media teams, we do forget about that aspect, that we are the subject matter experts, and you want to take that power and show that this is how we will do it from a digital age. All of us know that we've gotten those crazy requests that may not make sense all the time, or, hey, let's throw in this budget for boosting this post. but we may know that the other post is getting more engagement. So you want to make sure that you are taking that SME expertise to another level and showcasing that. With the humanized side of the brand, make sure that it is your own people. I know I mentioned a little bit of stock imagery. I know we've talked about AI and generating videos, generating photos. And I think AI is a very powerful tool to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is maybe you use AI to start a caption, to get creative with the caption. Maybe you use AI to take your actual photo and add something to the photo. So I know we had some examples of that. I think the use of AI with our original humanized content is a great tool to enhance what we are doing. And it is a perfect way of enhancing it. Now, starting from scratch and creating a complete video, that's where the legal aspect gets into play. Even with Getty Images, you have a certain amount of time that you can use a certain image, so always keep that in mind. Now, I do want to bring this up a little bit. Going through this strategy, going through this humanized plan, we are from the UHealth Miller School of Medicine. I want to give you guys a little bit of that story. Reason being is, I think when we talk through compliance, we're saying, oh my God, this is too much stuff. I can't think of legal. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what I'm doing with this. But there are ways to do a creative, humanized strategy where it grows organically, where you are not putting money behind the scenes. And I want to make sure that you guys know that it is possible. So with that being said, we have grown our following by 22.3%. With the UHealth side, engagement by 152%. With the Miller School, 17%. Engagement, 251%. Our HR team just got looped in with LinkedIn corporate office as best practices for healthcare. And this is all from organic strategy with these points that I pointed out to you in the previous slide. Now, what does that mean with next steps and what is that content? So I always say when it comes down to content, find the craziest idea. I think it is easy to take the craziest idea and then bring it down to your industry standard, your guidelines, and what you need to follow. Let's say you see, a completely different industry. So we're in healthcare. Sometimes we look at makeup industry. Sometimes we look at retail. We look at the craziest video and we say, okay, how can we flip this for our audience? Whether it's a caregiver, a patient, maybe the client that you're trying to push for. Find the craziest idea and see how you can flip that. Using that strategy, you start at the top. I would say, we have this theme of roots. And I want to encourage you guys to start from the leaves. Don't start from the bottom of the roots. Start from the leaves, the craziest idea, and dig into the roots of your company, into your clientele, into your personal brand, into whatever you are pushing out on social media. Now, with that content strategy that I just presented, we did a lot of educational awareness. So similar to Q&A sessions, webinars, community outreach, I think consumers build trust. So outside of just pushing, educational pieces or what we do, how much money we received maybe from a grant, you want to push out what you're doing in the community. It builds that trust of how we are not just a brand, we are here to help you. And that is the whole point of the company, the clientele, your strategy, your community outreach is very important. Now, employee storytelling. I think storytelling is a very broad subject, but storytelling is the consumer journey from start to finish. So you want to make sure that you know where that person is starting. And for the most part, they do start on social media, they do start on Google. But how do they continue the storytelling? Maybe it's a mother that is making an appointment for her family because she's the caregiver, but she's forgetting about herself. How do you catch her to want to make the appointment for herself? You have to always think about the whole journey, and even if it's creating personas for each social media platform. So create the persona of who's following you on Facebook, who is the clientele on Instagram, who are you trying to reach, and how can you change that social media strategy to those consumers before they even become your client. Lastly, we have the location transformation that connects over to research and innovation. So location transformation, where are you guys going, right? It's where are you moving into maybe the next month, the following year? I think a lot of us forget that with social media, you can grow into different areas of even the world internationally. We have international clientele in Dubai, in Spain, with our international eye hospital. We have cancer patients that we see from India that travel all the way over here. Social media is such a powerful tool, and how do you reach them with the humanized plan while still being able to follow that compliance and legal aspect? Now, what is next steps and what you guys can do for yourselves is create a program, an ambassador program for your company. Get those storytelling, insights from either employees, students, maybe it's your actual clientele, get that storytelling going. Community collaborations. Maybe you guys will connect with a different company that is down the road. Maybe you guys host an activation together. In our case, we have partnerships with our sports teams in Miami, so the Miami Marlins, Miami Heat, Miami Dolphins. Try to go even with local high schools, maybe local colleges. How can you collaborate with your brand, your company, to grow that outreach effort to the community and building the trust? I think once you build the trust internally with your community, you continue to grow and outreach with the external environments of different states, internationally, and even different demographics that you might have never had before. And lastly, you want to make sure that you are doing an influencer UGC content. Who in here is scared of influencers and user-generated content? I, for one, will raise my hand. Reason being, who in here follows Alex Earl? Okay, there we go. So Alex Earl, I like to give this example because this was an interesting one for us. Alex Earl, she was an influencer on TikTok. She was a great student. Do not get me wrong, great student. But she actually went viral with her video of, get ready with me to go to an after party after drinking all day at a tailgate. Even though we are not related to the main Gables campus, which is our school, we received backlash as a health system on how we can allow this for students to be doing that, even though she didn't even attend our health system. So you want to make sure that when you are going through influencers, the legal aspects, you are looking at all avenues and the what-ifs. That's where I go back to the quality over quantity. You want to make sure that if, for example, you have ambassadors of students, they sign contracts that they know that maybe they're not getting paid. They know that they're under a compliance side where they shouldn't be posting, hey, get ready with me while I'm drunk. You don't want that as a brand reputable, source for, different companies or clients to see that. And I believe it or not, it happens very often, a little too often than we would like. Now, I do want to thank you guys so much for listening in on this compliance side, the legal aspects, and I do want to open up the floor into a Q&A session. I know we have maybe some time, give or take. 5 minutes. Okay, so I do want to open the floor with compliance questions. When it comes down to different industries, I think different industries have their own obstacles, limitations, or even questions of how do I start? Any question?
I'm coming with the mic.
Oh. Thanks, Jessica.
How do you stay in compliance with NDAs when companies input NDAs? Do you work around them, or how do you?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. And I think it depends on the company, right? So how big the company is, NDAs. Usually with NDAs, it is a little bit of a bigger company. With NDAs, you want to make sure that you ensure to understand that contract and the liability behind the scenes. So really work with the compliance team, seeing what the NDA is about, what is allowed to be disclosed, what not. Perfect example, we've had celebrity patients that have attended our health system that we had to sign NDAs where we could not post them till an X amount of time. A lot of times NDAs have embargo dates, so sometimes you can wait 7 months before we post that anything happened, and usually that's where your communications team will also come in, just to make sure we have the full picture of what you're posting about that story, the right aspects. Usually with NDAs, whoever is signing that NDA is at a higher power, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's an influencer, and they have their own PR teams that do review the content as well. So that's where that partnership and collaboration effort really does come into play, so everyone is aligned. I always say over-communication is key when it comes down to that.
Okay.
Question?
Hi, my name is Caitlin Lewis, Crossroots Incorporated. We work with a local school district, and they have parents sign forms that they either can or cannot be on social media, and we have a contract with them that anything that they send us, like if we're not able to be at an event, so anything that they send us at a golf tournament or a book club, whatever they're doing, that anything they send us is in the contract we're able to use. Do you recommend going above that, or do you think what we have with them as a contract is okay?
Yeah, so that is actually a really good question. We just had this same situation with legal. Is a legal contract that specifies social media enough? They actually do recommend that if you are having a specific contract like that being signed to get photographed, are they allowed to be on social, you should actually broaden that. Reason being, let's say you cross-collaborate with your marketing department, your communications, I don't know if it's maybe even the website team. If, for example, that contract only says social media, that team cannot take the photo from your social media and put it on the website. At that point, that becomes a litigation. So you want to make sure that the actual form is broad enough that covers maybe all digital aspects, and it's allowed to be used by your organization's marketing and communications team. Let's say you have that submission form, right, when it comes down to submitting content. I always say when it comes down to events, make sure it's a public event. Let's say it's a private event, whether it's on Eventbrite, it's a luncheon, it's an invite only. At that point, everyone that is pictured should have a consent form, depending on the student and the parent.